Coming up on show 796, Rivian's own Supercharger-style network could be up and underway with some new talent ex-Tesla. Stick around, I'll tell you more. Plus on the podcast today, a charging speed test for the Peugeot E208. That means it comes up smelling of roses. How EV sales are predicted to surge, if not this year, then certainly next year. And why Geely's Polestar plans to have more spaces in China. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily, the edition for Monday, 1st of June. My name is Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. Thank you as always to myev.com for helping make the show. They are the first marketplace all about electric vehicles, totally free as well, and it really simplifies what can be a daunting process for some people right out at the beginning of learning about EVs. They really do make it nice and simple. And welcome to a brand new premium partner of this podcast, and not the first time that they have supported. However, I'm delighted to announce an increase of support really by, well, Bill and his team. Now, Bill Woosty and his team in Cincinnati with Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East have come on board as a premium partner of the podcast. Of course, they have the Volvo XC40 Recharge coming very soon, and lots of people are asking about that and getting interested in EVs, and so Bill wanted to use this podcast as a way of supporting the EV community, also raising some awareness for the business as well, and getting us, as we always talk about, the Volvo, quite a fair bit actually, reminding people that they are there in Cincinnati East if you want your electric Volvo XC40 Recharge. Looking forward to working with Bill and his team a little bit more this year as well. I can't say any more at the moment because I don't know how public certain things are, but something's happening in August I'm really excited about. But I'll tell you more when I've checked in with the team and I'm allowed to. Okay, so I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. Well, there's a road test going on right now by a YouTube reviewer. His name is Bjorn Nieland, where he gets EVs and he goes into the kind of deep down and dirty stats of things like charge times and power, and not just what the car looks like and the infotainment and stuff, but he really does get under the skin of a car, and that's why I like it. It's a little bit nerdy, probably too nerdy for some people, but I absolutely love stuff like that. And at the minute, he's testing a Peugeot E208. So he's taking the new Peugeot E208 on a 1,000 kilometre challenge and plugged it in to a high-powered charger. Now, when he arrived at the charger, the car had 11% state of charge, and when he plugged it in, it was charging at 99.8 kilowatts. Now, Peugeot say the car will charge at 100 kilowatts, and so they're off by 200 watts. I mean, I'm only joking, because to get anywhere even close to the advertised charge speeds with many EVs is amazing. Well done to Peugeot and, well, the team that put that chassis together, actually, because it deserves a bigger conversation around that car. But 100 kilowatt charge speed, near as damn it, is just fantastic. It's very quick compared to its competition. Cars like the Zoe, the ZE50, well, that's only going to be charging at 50 kilowatts. If you get the DC fast charging option on that, the MG ZS, the Hyundai IONIQ, admittedly a smaller battery, but also ridiculously efficient. There's witchcraft going on there. The Peugeot, though, getting back to the subject of the story, does have a water-cooled battery pack. Well, I should say liquid thermal management battery pack, because sometimes that's not only about cooling it down, but heating it up as well. It's got a heat pump. They've done well with it. It is the same chassis, I should point out, as a couple of other cars. There's the DS, don't call it a Citroen. There's the DS3 Crossback E-Tense, and there's the Vauxhall / Opel Corsa-E. Now, all three of those have exactly the same specs. They have 50 kilowatt hour packs. They charge at 100 kilowatts, and if you charge them at home, they'll charge at 7 kilowatts with your home charger, onboard charger, and you can even spec them with an 11 kilowatt AC charger. So if you have got some AC chargers in the country where you live, obviously France has a lot of 22 kilowatt AC posts. You can do that to get a slight bump in charge speed when you're on the AC and using the onboard charger. Somehow the Peugeot and the DS are slightly slower. They go 0 to 60 in 8.7 seconds, whereas the Corsa is a second quicker at 7.6 or 1.1 seconds quicker. I don't know why. I thought they were all exactly the same car. Maybe, as one of my listeners on Twitter suggested, a change in weight or even how they manage the performance of it? Well, they all use the same motor. It's a 100 kilowatt or 136 horsepower motor. For a quick splash and dash, the Peugeot will beat any other car in its class, apart from its cousin cars, of course. They're all the same. Because if you get down to single digits in terms of how much is left, I mean, this was 11% I saw in the video, but if you are around 10% and you stop at a fast charger and you're stopping for 20 or 25 minutes, it's going to take a lot of charge early on in the charge curve. If you're new to the podcast, I don't want to patronise you, but let me explain. Some EVs ramp up their charge quite slowly, or like the Zoe, like the Renault Zoe. When you charge it at 50 kilowatts, which is half the speed of the Peugeot, it can do that speed for nearly the entire charge of the battery. So even when you're at 85, 90% of the battery, it's still charging at maybe 35 or 40 kilowatts speed. Whereas like the Peugeot, for instance, by the time you get to 80 or 90% battery full, it's down, it's just trickling in. And that's when the Zoe starts to catch up. So if you are going to compare both cars and you're going to charge both cars from empty to full, the Zoe is definitely not twice as slow as the Peugeot, because it sort of catches up. I'm using air quotes. It catches up at the end. But the Peugeot, and I presume if it's the same car, the DS3 Crossback E-Tense and the Vauxhall Corsa-E, those, if you turn up at a charger with a low state of charge, will take a lot of charge very, very quickly, which is good for road tripping because you don't want to stop too long. It's the same with Teslas, right? So Tesla talk about the Model 3 charging at 250 kilowatt charge speeds, which is crazy fast, by the way. But they will take that full charge early on in the charge curve. But then they do slow down pretty quickly. They're not going to maintain that crazy fast speed for much longer than a few minutes. And then it slows down as the battery fills up. But really, if you're road tripping and you're stopping and you only want to get to 60, 70, 80% battery full, well, it makes sense to have a car that can take a great deal of current very quickly when you first plug it in. Look, there's different ways of cracking the same nut. I'm just explaining why some people will prefer that car over one that behaves in a slightly different way. I'll pop a link to my Twitter in the show notes. That's where I was discussing it last night, actually, with a few of my listeners and people that we chat on Twitter about the various things around that car that we were watching on the live stream. But all three look really good. I'm excited. I don't talk much about the Peugeot E208, the Vauxhall Corsa-E, the DS3 Crossback. I believe there's also an Alpha coming soon. I know, right, on exactly the same chassis. It's good tech. And these cars are all 20-something thousand pounds. Admittedly, 25 to 30. You know, they're not the cheaper end. They're not the MGZS CV. It's not crazy money, is it, to get a very good bit of technology that only a few years ago would have been on top of the range of an EV. All right, moving on. And a new report by Cairn Energy Research Advisors, a research firm focused on the battery and EV industries. Well, they predict a surge in electric vehicle sales in 2021 as countries around the world push new programs to encourage consumers to buy pure battery electric cars. Cairn estimates global sales of EVs next year, in 2021, will jump 36% and top 3 million vehicles for the first time ever, says CNBC Markets. They say that production of EVs is estimated to climb to at least 1.3 million and could be 1.5 million, depending on how we recover from the virus this year, according to Bernstein analyst Mark Newman. Well, the Wedbush analyst Dan Ives raised his price target on Tesla from 600 to 800, saying that they continue to believe EV demand in China is starting to accelerate, with Tesla competing with a number of domestic and international competitors for market share. Meanwhile, back at Cairn Energy Research, they're predicting the biggest growth of EV sales will be happening in Europe next year, mainly because governments and the EU are committed to lowering carbon dioxide emissions, and they're actually putting in big fines for automakers that don't hit that across their fleet, so they're forcing them to sell EVs, and some of them against their will. Of course, they would deny that. All the car companies say they very much want to do EVs. Some of them are talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's just jolly inconvenient to be making EVs now. They're going to want to get that last bit out of petrol and diesel, if you see it from their side of things. Well, the commitment is pushing countries like France to roll out new incentives to convince residents to buy EVs with money off brand new cars. A bonus for people to buy an EV. The French President Emmanuel Macron said that he wanted France to become a top producer in Europe of clean vehicles, while the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y are going to get the lion's share of mass market sales, at least in the short term. There are new models coming out, like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, General Motors Hummer EV, and many more as well. I'll pop a link to CNBC in the show notes if you'd like to read more. Rivian could be the next ones to build their own supercharging-style network, their own network of chargers, custom-built to work with Rivian. It seems that the Amazon-backed company, which are making electric adventure vehicles, the i1S for SUV and the i1T for a truck, are taking a leaf and a few employees out of Tesla's playbook before they even debut a vehicle. Well, Rivian started to work on their adventure network. The Adventure Network is the same as Tesla's Supercharging Network. They've hired Carrington Bradley, the former senior manager of chargers at Tesla, to do it, says the website The Next Web. Whilst at Tesla, Bradley was responsible for managing the team of project managers, designing, doing the permitting and building out for superchargers. Tesla grew from building 50 to 150 superchargers a year, well, sites per year, so many more chargers. The electric SUV startup has hired Kit Ahuja, formerly a manager at Tesla, to be the director of the Adventure Network. And the company is recruiting Sarah Esslinger as well, former head of electric vehicle deployments at Lyft, the ride-sharing firm, yeah? It certainly looks like Rivian is getting ready to get their adventure network up and underway. Having people with long track records doing a very similar thing is a good sign that Rivian's taken it very seriously. Moving on to Polestar, owned by the Chinese company Geely, the company plans a big expansion of their showroom network in mainland China. Sources say, according to Channel News Asia today, they're preparing to deliver cars to compete with Tesla's locally made Model 3. Well, showroom strength is becoming a differentiator for some EV makers in the world's biggest auto and EV market as they line up new model launches. Polestar, which plans to deliver Polestar 2 electric sedans in China. Those deliveries, by the way, start in July for the Polestar 2 in China. They've got one showroom, which they call a Polestar Space, and it's in Beijing, in the capital. It plans to have 20 Polestar Spaces, with most of them operating in the third quarter of this year. Unlike sales of cars through dealers that many automakers rely on, Polestar will sell directly to customers. So at the moment, if I go onto the Polestar website, I can put my £1,000 down and place a deposit for the Polestar 2. In China, Tesla has 50 showrooms, galleries, or various versions of Tesla's way of showing off their cars. Of course, none of them are dealerships in the traditional sense. NIO has 110 showrooms. Some of them belong to partners, in other words, dealers. Xpeng want to have 200 outlets. And there are kind of mixed versions, like hybrid versions of that sales model in China, like WM Motor. They do have their own spaces where you can go see the car, and they have partners who look after sales, delivery and services. Whereas what Polestar want to do, as far as I can gather, is only have Polestar spaces. So you can't get the dealership experience from them, but you can go and see the car, look at the car, try the technology. You can buy one on a terminal inside Polestar Spaces. When it comes to getting it, they bring the car to you, they deliver it. That's why Polestar Spaces, they say, different to a different way of doing it. It's all very interesting. There's not going to be one right or wrong way that we do this. And probably now is a good time to offer a correction to something, or a clarification of what I said on the podcast recently. We were talking about how far you can be away sometimes from a mechanic or a piece of support for an EV maker if they don't have a high presence in the country that you are in. For instance, where I am, I'm 2 hours away from Bristol, where Tesla have a service centre, and I'm 2 hours away from London, where they have a service centre. So one of the things that's always made me pause on buying a Tesla, apart from the price, of course, is the fact that I'm not just round the corner from getting it fixed, and it's going to be on the back of a lorry for 100 or 120 miles or something to get to where it has to get to. And then somebody emailed me to say, Tesla come to you, right? Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about that. Well, I knew it, but it just slipped my mind when I was saying that. So I guess that is a very valid point, and I'm happy to read out that email now and clarify it. Okay, moving on. The Chinese EV maker BYD. BYD are going to supply batteries to Ford. See, a document on the website of the Chinese Ministry of Industry and Information Technology showed today that Ford's China venture with Changan Automobile is seeking the government approval to build plug-in hybrids with BYD's batteries, writes Reuters. This marks BYD's first known supply deal with a global automaker. Shenzhen-based BYD, of course, famously backed by Warren Buffett, who is often mentioned in a good old BYD headline, said it would supply EV components like batteries and power management devices to Ford. Let's talk Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi. The EVs and the plug-in EVs are going to be sharing more than they ever have done. The company said they would share the upper bodies of the same segment cars besides platforms. What does that mean for EVs and plug-ins? Does that mean they're all going to suddenly look the same, whether you buy a Renault, a Nissan or a Mitsubishi? Well, Renault sells the Dacia in Latin America with the diamond-shaped logo on the front of the cars. So is it a Renault? It's a Dacia Logan, though. And Nissan's way of doing it, they say, is with something like the Aprio, is nothing more than a badge-engineered first-generation Dacia. Well, the intention, it turns out, by sharing upper bodies is not that all Renault, Nissan and Mitsubishis are going to start looking identical. It's merely a way of saving money. The things which you don't see or you don't pay any attention to that can be in common, something like the first upper body, like the structure. Says Inside EVs, a step further than the common module family's strategy. If those three car makers can share a platform and the first upper body, you save 40%, and each company will have its own teams working on the final design of what the cars look like and what badge goes on the front. Well, the interim CEO, who is waiting for the full-time CEO, Luca Di Maio, will take the helm. He's taking the helm on the 1st of July. Also wishing that the same segment cars from all three companies can be produced in the same factory. You see, that lowers the idle capacity, and it allows for plant closure. It allows cost cutting. Renault wants to save €2 billion and fire 15,000 people to cut costs. It means the Nissan Aria will probably be developed to allow for Renault and Mitsubishi derivatives of the Aria, which is the car not replacing the Leaf, but it's the one that Nissan are talking about. They're not talking about the Leaf at all anymore. They're all talking about when the Aria arrives and the slideshows, the presentations they do. The Leaf is ominously missing from those kind of marketing efforts. It's all about the Aria with Nissan at the moment. Plug-in vehicles from Renault could also present Nissan options. The Capture plug-in hybrid could be a Juke plug-in hybrid, for example. Future Mitsubishi Outlander could be the basis for a new Renault Kadjar. Things like that, Nissan Qashqai. And so, those three companies looking to share more than ever before in order to save more money than ever before. And the final story today, at the time of writing, Tesla stock trading at $873. The surge in Tesla's share price could be attributed to projections that the EV sector itself is going to skyrocket in 2021 that I mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast. Also, Elon Musk's successes over the weekend with the SpaceX launch with NASA and the first privatized company to launch NASA astronauts into orbit, says Teslarati. That has a halo effect when it comes to investors because the stock market can be an emotional place to be as well. So when you see companies like SpaceX and Tesla, two different companies, different market segments, but drawing a line between them, seeing a successful launch of Crew Dragon going to the International Space Station, and then drawing a line to Tesla, of course, Elon Musk being that conduit. Look, it could have been the other way around. There could have been a horrible, failed launch. There could have been a tragedy, which nobody, of course, would have wanted to see. But if it had have done, would that have adversely affected Tesla? Because, again, of that line between them being Elon. Well, people are having a field day at the moment, looking at SpaceX and going, crikey, look at what Elon can do with rockets. What about his cars? And so that's one theory about why the emotion in the stock market takes over sometimes, and people maybe using that halo effect of the SpaceX launch to invest in Tesla. The share price keeps edging and nudging towards that threshold of $1,000. All right, question of the week this week. I'd love to hear from you, because critics say that EVs are only for the rich, but you and I know it's not true. So when we talk about affordable EVs, what price in your head is affordable? I know everyone's answer is going to be different, but I want to know why and where you live and what it means to you. What's affordability for you? Email me. The address is hello@evnewsdaily.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Well, thank you very much to 227 patrons of this podcast. New month, new billing month. I'm aware that my patrons will probably be getting their notifications. Would have been billed for another month. Thank you so much. My premium partners of the show: Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for clean tech talent, and then Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, and the newest name to add to the list, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East. Looking forward to getting those recharge models in stock. Well, if you want to catch up on social media, I'd love to hear from you. Just search EV News Daily and you will find me. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.